Now, this morning, we get to take note on a few conversations. One of them is fighting against teenage pregnancy in the Acholi sub-region. Now, just to give you the statistical background of it, statistics from different health departments and civil societies do indicate a high prevalency of teenage pregnancy in this area, spiked in attribute to COVID-19 lockdown. The numbers recorded between the years of 2019 and 2021 put the number at approximately 20,000 girls that have had teenage pregnancy. A troubling report indeed indicated a total of 14,530 cases of post-abortion care registered in various health facilities between 2020 and 2021 alone. And in the past months, and nearly half of those who had been treated were so seriously endangered that they had to be admitted. Today, we do have a conversation with Mr. Anthony Akol, who's the Member of Parliament, Kilak North, and the chairperson, Acholi Parliamentary Committee, to address this challenge. Good morning to you, Honorable.
Good morning. I am the chairman of Acholi Parliamentary Group.
Okay.
It is not a committee.
It's not a committee.
But also, to some extent, I'm also the chairman of Parliamentary Forum on Food Security, Population and Development in Parliament of Uganda. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Now, this is a very touching conversation that we're going to have. Teenage pregnancies that have become alarming between 2020 and today. Generally, across the country, the numbers have gone up. In the Acholi sub-region, what are the underlying enabling environmental things that have enhanced teenage pregnancy to build up in numbers in the sub-region?
Well, this is a very sad, situation. It affects me, it affects you, because in one way or the other, you could be having a daughter, you have a sister, and somebody can be a girl, and it affects everybody. It affects the economy itself, because the situation is bad. But the problem, first of all, comes from the traditional, belief. In the past, somebody is considered ready for marriage in the Acholi sub-region. If you are a boy, when the voices started, changing, you are ready for marriage. If you are a girl, by the time you are now developing the breast, people did not have a standard of how you should measure somebody ready for marriage. And that, from the traditional, belief, affected the situation in the sub-region. That is one of the problems. But to some extent, I would tell you that another problem which is serious is the poverty. If you recall, around 2021, the Bureau of Statistics did a research, and they came out and they said 68% of the population in Acholi sub-region are poor. And that shows to you that if you get about 100 people in the Acholi sub-region, 68 are poor people. And that tells you the complication that comes with poverty. When you are poor, first of all, the parents cannot take care of the girl, and then the girl finds the environment at home is worse than any person who can lure her. Secondly, they can't afford to educate the girl child, the teenager, who might be very much interested to go to school. As members of parliament from the sub-region, we are suffering. You get calls almost on a daily basis. You are incapacitated. You can't even facilitate all the girls. So at the end of the day, such a girl will get frustrated. The next step is to go and look for where she can survive. So poverty contributes a lot to that level. And that is a very serious problem also. But apart from that, there is a problem of, education. When a girl stays longer in school, then it reduces the rate of pregnancy. So if the parents fail to educate the girl, obviously that girl will opt to go and get married. And that's another problem. But also it came with the problem of COVID-19. When the schools were closed, there was no way girls could go to school. The environment was really bad. And there was nothing else but also to go and then get engaged in sexual relationship and that contributed also to the problem of teenage pregnancy. But also you have to remember that the sub-region suffered a lot during the war. And that created a long problem of poverty, but at the same time when people were in the camp, that became a vice. That when a girl reaches about 13 years, 14 years, they were married off, and that is also one of the effects that is up to now facing the people. That also caused the problem of poverty because people lost a lot. Their cattle were removed by the LRA and by the then NRA, and people became poor. Up to now, they're talking to government. They want to be compensated. Government keeps promising. They talk about the budget. This time, President launched the compensation. Nothing is happening. But recently, there's also another problem, which is affecting the districts of Agago and Lamore. That is the Karamojong, you know, the raiders, the wrestlers. It has rendered the sub-region very poor, especially there are schools closed, people cannot even work in the garden. At the end of the day, it is causing all this problem in the sub-region. So when you ask me what could be the problem that is causing all this, this is what I can attribute it to, which is causing all this problem in the Acholi sub-region, in terms of, you know, bringing up the teenage pregnancy, going up other than the other sub-region. But if you look very carefully, you will understand that this problem is related to poverty too much. Because if you look at the statistics, the Acholi sub-region, then you go to eastern Uganda, then it comes to central and western, you really see that there is a direct correlation between poverty and the teenage pregnancy. So that is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. Okay, so
Honorable, all the points that you put out are seeds that were planted so many years back. The poverty, the war that you have talked about, the cattle raiders, the culture norms, all these are seeds that were planted, have grown trees. And so to eradicate it cannot be in a snap of a finger. So as you leaders of the sub-region, what are you doing currently to actually eradicate this problem in the near future?
I think this problem need to be addressed and need to be faced with seriousness. And therefore, it should be all stakeholders. It shouldn't be left to maybe political leaders. Let
me tweak it a bit.
It shouldn't be left to religious leaders only.
Allow me to tweak it a bit. Okay. And I know most of it is coming from the culturalness of the sub-region. The fact that deep voice, breasts, please, you're ready to go out of the house for exchange of bride price. Let's just touch base with that one particular issue. Are the people of the Acholi land willing to change their customs in order to deal with this problem?
Well, the situation is changing. The new cultural institutions headed by Ruot David Onyanachana II has been dealing with this issue with the cultural institutions. But at the same time, even the religious leaders have been dealing with the same issue. The political leaders. Personally, I have used every gathering, whether it is a burial, whether it is a wedding, or my own campaign to make sure I talk to the people. So it is a joint effort in terms of that particular effort to tell people that this affects you as a person, because these are our own people. They're getting pregnant from our community. The boda riders, the business community, the teachers, the parents, I mean, the caregivers, the teachers. These are the people involved. So it needs every effort in every gathering to talk to the people. But fortunately, you know, the cases are also getting to court. So people now understanding the situations, but it is a gradual process. You cannot change it in a day. In terms of that traditional belief, you know, that is like a mindset change, and mindset change takes time. You can't do it in a day, so we are doing that in that area. But also, to some extent, I feel, to work on the issue of poverty, we have to do a multi, you know, approach. There are many approaches should be taking place. For example, the primary level curriculum should be changed in such a way that in the formal education we integrate we have to integrate the skill training to make sure by the time somebody reaches P7, where there is a lot of dropout because of poverty, somebody has a skill, which skill can be used to generate finances and a livelihood from that kind of, skill. Somebody could have been trained in hairdressing and will make you appear smart the way you are. I mean, from P7, somebody should have the skill. Yeah. Maybe baking or catering, I mean, kind of training, somebody can cook well, or maybe tailoring, or short courses in terms of repair of motorbikes, a repair of phones. Now, these days, people have a lot of phones. So if these kind of skills are integrated at primary level, it can develop the sub-region, not only sub-region, the whole country. If you look at developed world, if you look at the countries that have developed in short period, like Singapore and all that, they develop along because of the skill trainings.
Earlier on, you were telling me about a case study that you did in another country. Could you share that with us?
Well, when I went to Ghana and also in the UK, I found this is what is happening. Actually, in Parliament of Uganda, from the 10th Parliament, I wanted this to be implemented. And up to now, it is still lying with the legal team to make sure that we have the amendments, to make sure that the curriculum in Uganda should involve, include all the skill training. And that is what can improve in terms of livelihood of young and teenagers who are getting pregnant. But above all, something needs to be done in terms of security, which needs government. Because if you see what is happening in Kitgum, in Agago, this is within the reach of the government. It is in the constitution of Uganda to make sure that government should protect citizens and their property. People cannot go to school because of this kind of insecurity. That is something that can be done. But the mindset change that I talked about should involve the religious leaders, should involve the political leaders, should involve the cultural institutions.
It should start from the top.
That can help, and even government, wherever people meet, should be talking something that is positive, that can make sure that our people can get better. But part of the poverty in the sub-region, which is very serious, is about what people grow. The people in Acholi sub-region grow crops that in 3-4 months you uproot it, you start again to prepare the garden. We need to make sure that people go to animal production, people go to perennial crops like the Hass avocado, which is now gold in the world, the cashew nuts production, the palm oil, which is in Kalangala. It has changed the life of the people. So that when people plant once, they keep on harvesting. Even in the central region, people plant, the banana, they keep harvesting and, maintaining the garden, the coffee. And this is the kind of thing that should be done to make sure people have money. If they have resources, they are able to educate their girls and therefore reduce the teenage pregnancy. At the same time, it will make sure that, the girls themselves don't fear their homes. You're going to look for a border rider to help you to buy, the sanitary pads. I mean, this kind of situation is really bad.
Economic activity.
Yes.
It changes the face. Now, you have spoken about this journey has to start from the top. And I do understand that most recently, clerics vowed to join the fight. And how effective will this be, their engagement at this particular time?
Well, it is important that people in the Seventh-day churches, in the Catholic churches, in the Muslim community, in the Anglican churches should be talking the same language. We can only understand whether it is effective or not after a research is done. So we need to give it time, maybe 2-3 years, and do a research to find out. We can involve the NGOs, the civil society at different levels to come in, and this vice can go. It is something that can be solved. Yes. Okay.
You have continuously highlighted poverty. Currently, I do know that skills-based programs can go a long way in eliminating poverty from a region. Are there any government-centered skills-based programs that are within the region to help eradicate such issues?
Well, government has always tried to put in place the traditional, technical schools, which are in some technical schools in the sub-regions, which needs you to first have reached maybe primary 7 after sitting your PLE, or after your O-level, that's when you go for a formal technical skill training. But what I'm talking about, which I personally involved myself at one point about, is involving people irrespective of their level of education. Yeah. Because there are situations where somebody has dropped out before P7. That kind of person can also go for skill training. So NGOs have been doing it. Personally, before I became a member of parliament, I was involved in it. And even up to now, I can see the effect on the people. You can feel, you see the outcome that some people are doing something that brings money. So that means government should change approach from the formal technical skill of training to short courses that can make somebody learn in 1 month. And director of industrial training gives those short certificates to make sure they can do better. And that kind of approach, if it is implemented, can change the situation on the ground. Okay,
of course, that would call you to now have a close relationship with the Directorate of Industrial Training
that is true.
Achieve that.
That is true.
The other question I want to ask, how can we help?
By we, I don't know what you mean.
By we, I mean,
you mean
the rest of Uganda,
the media houses,
the rest of the people. How can we help Acholi sub-region to eradicate teenage pregnancies?
As I said, it is a joint effort. By first of all, the media houses, you have done it today. The fact that I'm speaking about it now, people know it and they are listening to it, and they can take some steps. So it is a joint effort. It can't be left to Acholi sub-region. This is a responsibility of the government. It is a responsibility of every Ugandan because it affects you. The fact that people get pregnant at a young age, they go to hospital, budget is spent on them, they get complications, and therefore taxpayers' money goes to treat this young generation. And that means, apart from Acholi sub-region, it is a joint effort to make sure we eradicate this vice in the country, not only in the sub-region. Okay. So it needs a joint effort. Yeah.
Okay. All right. In terms of what he's referring to and why I ask this question is because it's a cycle that gets to affect us at the end of the day. Currently, on the streets of Kampala, we do have street children that have come from this region. And those street children have become vandalizers, have become robbers, have taken on drugs because of the terrible state of livelihood in the Acholi sub-region. So they end up running away, hence becoming a nuisance to the rest of society. And so that's the backbone of which I come to ask. Now, Honorable...
On that ground, I know that there are a lot of street children in Kampala, but the majority of street children comes from Karamojong. Now, that shows to you that once you have a problem in one sub-region, it affects the whole country.
That's true.
Because you have to make home better than, the home should be better than the street. When these children come on the street, there are push factor that is pushing them out of their homes. You recently saw what was happening in Karamoja. People were dying of hunger. And that also affected part of the Acholi sub-region. The Agago district was affected. Many people also died of hunger because the raiders removed their food and everything in their homes. So it shows to you that if there is a problem in the country, it shouldn't be considered that this is a Karamojong problem, this is a Acholi problem, this is maybe Eastern Uganda, the Basoga problem, or the Baganda problem. So it needs a joint effort for all Ugandans to come up and look at particular problem to make sure that we solve it. If we don't do it, then we are in problem.
I would like to have your final words on this subject matter.
Well, the final words is that I appeal to all Ugandans, irrespective of where you are, that we should put programs that can uplift the sub-region from poverty. If we don't do it, then at the end of the day, we are affected as a country. And if you feel it is Acholi problem or it is a Karamoja problem, it will finally get to you, because these children can, at the end of the day, turn out to be robbers. They can even spend the citizens' money, the taxpayers' money, which you're a taxpayer, and at the end of the day, you are affected in one way or the other.
All right.
Yes, so
thank you so
should
much,
be a joint
Honorable
effort.
Anthony Akol, who is the Member of Parliament for Kilak. And of course, he has alluded to the fact that poverty is one of the underlying issues for teenage pregnancy. Now, it's not only in the Acholi sub-region, but across different parts of Uganda, even in the eastern Uganda. And also the culture, norms and customs that we practice have made it an enabling environment for young girls to easily get pregnant, because they're not protected. They're looked at as prize, they're looked at as exchange for dowry, and so on and so forth. And so they get to then be faced with the harshness and realities of life according to their bodies. Because of that, how do we get to eradicate it? Well, it's a step-by-step process, changing the mindset, and of course introducing things like skills-based programs to add skill, which will add value, which will add an income, which will add value to the lifestyle and the mentality of this person. And this, at the end of the day, comes down to a better Uganda. So let's join forces in fighting this new vice of teenage pregnancy and bring an end to it someday. It should no longer be a conversation. Now, speaking of conversations, we're going to be having a business update supporting sustainable micro, small and medium enterprises growth. And we do have representation from NSSF to have those conversations, as well as other guests joined by Chris. Again, we stay with us.